Good morning. I am LaNissir James. I am one of the educational specialists here at HSLDA and outreach coordinator at HSLDA. And I am so very excited about our conversation and our guest today. This is really going to be just a treat for all watching and for all ages from K through 12. This topic today is making classical studies for college credit. It really starts at kindergarten and it moves all the way up. And today, our amazing guests are Dr. Angel Parham, who is a professor, and she's also the co-author of Nyansa. Say it for me.
Nyansa.
Nyansa. We are so excited. You're going to learn all about it today. And we have homeschool mom Jenelle Davis from Davis Academy with us today. How are you? How are you both?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Doing well.
Awesome.
So happy to be here.
Awesome. This is going to be a fun conversation. And I want to just kind of have everybody kind of relax into what we're about to talk about, and it's classical education. And I really think we have to give context here to what is classical education. I know I'm a homeschool mom of 7. You guys are homeschool moms. We really have to explain what classical education means for our viewers. So who wants to jump in there and tell me your definition of classical education?
Well, I'm happy to start. So thanks again for this invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here. So I think of classical education in kind of 3 pieces: the philosophy of the education, the content, and the pedagogy. So in terms of philosophy, cultivating wisdom and virtue is very important to classical educators, shaping the moral imagination and using great text and great stories to do that, great literature to do that, so that we do obviously care about the academic excellence of our students, but we really want them to grow up to be wise and virtuous people. So that's the philosophy. In terms of content, classical educators turn to great and good books. And so great books would be those that many people acknowledge as classics, such as Homer, Shakespeare, for instance. I think other classics would include, say, W.E.B. Du Bois's Souls of Black Folk, many of the excellent speeches of Frederick Douglass, which are, kind of the high point of rhetoric in our American tradition. But there are also many good books and texts, fairy tales, folk tales that help to teach lessons of wisdom and virtue. So that kind of content, looking at enduring content that's great and good. And then finally, classic pedagogies. So some of those pedagogies that many of our schools over the last century or so, maybe have given up on. Memory work, very, very important to classical educators. Phonics for reading. And then something called commonplace books, which is an old practice going back to the medieval and even into antiquity, which is a kind of really rigorous and very fruitful intellectual journal. So some of those kinds of classic pedagogies are also what classical educators love.
I love that. I love that. What a great definition as well. So I want to get a chance to know both of you. I want to find out a little bit about Jenelle. Tell us a little bit, your homeschool mom. Give us kind of your 90-second homeschool story and tell us how you got connected to Dr. Parham.
Yes, thank you. I am a homeschool mom of 7 as well and founder of Davis Learning Academy. Our kids have always been homeschooled from birth. We were encouraged by our pastor who married us, Pastor Roger Skeppel, to really look into homeschooling as a form of Christian education. And so we looked into it, prayed about it, and felt like God was definitely calling us to that form of Christian education. And then and so that started about 15 years ago now. And I can't believe it's been that long. And 5 years ago, during the pandemic, actually, I felt a call to look into classical education. Formerly, we had focused heavily on STEAM and STEM schooling, my professional background is as a computer scientist. All of my graduate coursework is in computer science. So I was very heavy into the STEAM side of things, but really felt called into classical education because a person is really more than the sum of their utility. And sometimes with STEM and STEAM, we can kind of forget that, but a person is so much more than what they do. Each and every person is valuable because of who they are. And because they're made in the image of God. And so God led me to classical education from that. And on my search for great curriculum, I came across Nyansa. And I reached out to the staff at Nyansa and was put in contact with Dr. Parham. And the rest, as we say, is history. It's been awesome. It's been really awesome.
Wow. So I want to kind of unpack this. So you're a homeschool mom. You're like all of us. We're trying to find the right curriculum, the right blend of, education, moral character, Christian values, all those things. And so you were searching for a curriculum, a resource. I want everybody to know who's watching. If you have questions for these ladies, make sure you put them in the comments because we want to know where you're watching from, as well as maybe what type of educational style you use. Do you use classical, traditional, Montessori? Today we're talking about classical education, and we're all, I don't know about if you guys would say the same. One thing that homeschoolers do is we collect books, right? Mm-hmm. We collect books. We have books, and books. And I came across Nyansa's work, and I realized, even though we're going to talk about how Nyansa got to college, we have to remember that the Greek mythologies and some of the elementary literature that I have here, I actually have one of her books here, is so intriguing. And I want to know a little bit about kind of the entry level. How does it work, Dr. Parham, for a new student? Their mom's on here watching. She's got a kindergarten student and she decides, hey, I really want to go the classical route. What does that look like in terms of some of your curriculum and Greek mythologies and the way that you approach younger students? Can you talk on that?
Yeah, great question. So I also should say that I was a homeschool mom for about, how long was it? Almost 15 years. And only just recently transitioned my daughters to a classical school. But I started when they were really tiny. In fact, I started with the youngest when she was 2, just reading high quality stories to her, doing letters and so on. But I would say so much of it is in the rich literary environment that we make in our homes. Really reading from a very young age. And I think sometimes people underestimate what our really tiny ones get from reading, very high quality literature, picture books. But also, I remember when I started with my oldest, when she was 4, that was when we first got a formal curriculum. We had been doing other things before that. And there was, for instance, a book of stories about Uncle Wiggily, the rabbit. Excuse me. And these were fascinating stories. So very kind of old-fashioned, almost no pictures. And the only pictures would be maybe, a pencil sketch here and there. Very dense, high-level vocabulary, but definitely children's stories. And when she was 4 years old, she would just sit there rapt, for 20 to 30 minutes, listening to the adventures of Uncle Wiggily the rabbit and all of the animals in the forest, just painting the pictures in her mind. And so I think just training that habit of attention is so crucial for the young ones. That is a real skill, to be able to sit there in a sustained period of time, listening to beautiful literature. It trains their imagination, it trains their vocabulary, because even though they may not understand every single word, they really are soaking it up. And they are painting these pictures in their mind of the rabbit and the moral lessons, and they're getting the vocabulary, and so their kind of oral vocabulary is going to be higher than what they can read on their own, but it all works together. So for the very youngest, it's the storytelling is so, so important. That's the very beginning.
I love that. I know when Jenelle and I can attest, when you have a lot of kids, somebody's always kind of on the bus, right? Like the academic is not necessarily matching the child. It's on a higher level, and they're catching it. They're catching bits and pieces of it, and but that's where the love of learning happens, right? In the very beginning, as young children get a chance to observe their parents really. Sharing stories and great literature and falling in love with reading. I think children begin to mock their parents in this experience. So I love this. So tell us, Dr. Parham, how did the elementary literature series how was it born? Before Jenelle got to know you, you obviously had already put a lot of work into this great literature.
Mhm.
Tell us how it all unfolded for you.
Sure. Yeah. So that's a long story. This is actually our 10th anniversary year with Nyansa Classical Community, which is very exciting. And it really started in my living room with my daughters. So we were living in New Orleans at the time. We were living in a socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhood on purpose as part of what our church ministry was doing there. And we had other neighbors from our church who were living there to make a difference. And so as I would sit reading, all of these great texts with my daughters, my neighbors across the street were really struggling. And they knew that I was an educator and asked, do you have any resources? Can you point us in any direction? And that was when I and another homeschool mom decided, we were both doing classical education. How do we bring this in a high quality but user-friendly way to this community? And that is where Nyansa Classical Community was born, was to bring these beautiful texts into that community. And so started meeting at my church. We met twice a week as an after-school program. And so I wanted to read this classic literature, but I also wanted to do it in a way that was culturally inclusive. And so we would kind of weave together in this beautiful way the mainstays of the classical Western tradition with some of what we knew of more diverse traditions. As an example, so we would read Homer's Odyssey, a children's version of Homer's Odyssey, and then we taught the children about the art of Romare Bearden. And he has the Black Odyssey series. He was a brilliant artist of the Harlem Renaissance, and he's got all these beautiful panels of collage and painting that portray different scenes from Homer's Odyssey, but kind of reinterpreted through African diaspora experience. And they are just gorgeous. And so that's an example of the kind of braiding together that Nyansa does, so that we bring those classics and then we bring people together from many diverse backgrounds. And that is threaded through everything we do, from the youngest age of the kindergarten all the way up to the high school and then into the college, in the way that Jenelle has adapted it.
I love that. I love that. So this is a community experience. I know I saw some videos of how not only can you teach your child, but if you're in a co-op or you're in a tutorial, you can bring in some of these elements to really pique the attention of your students. And I think what I love too about is classical education. You're also bringing in into what I call an underserved community where they see themselves. I flipped through the book and I was like, oh wow, it really caught my attention. And I don't know if there's anything like this out. And I also noticed that you guys had a book that was listed in Classical Academic Press. And so that's kind of how I really found out about you many, many years ago. I met your co-author there, and I was just curious. And when your family, particularly your new homeschool mom, you're trying to figure it all out, right? You're not sure. You're classical for a moment, but you're not sure if you're going to continue classical. And we're all on a search for books, books, books. And so what I found about your curriculum was, just how rich it was, and how it really has a love for classical education. And Jenelle, I'm assuming that's how you found it, because you were searching, you were looking, right? And so how did you actually find this community? Did you do a Google search, or how did you find Dr. Parham's work?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely did a Google search because I looked at a lot of curriculum, and I was still longing for a little bit more richness and depth and biblical worldview, to be honest. And one thing that's very distinctive about Nyansa is, for each week's lesson, there is a corresponding Bible lesson. So there's a whole section of Bible lessons, both at the elementary level and the upper school level, that map directly to the literature lessons that are and the art lessons that are in each week's sessions. And I just thought that was phenomenal to already have that worldview and integration. And one of the other things I really love about Nyansa is it's not changing the classics, right? So when students study the classics, it's not changing or revising it in any way. You're studying it alongside of another piece of artwork or another piece of rich literature that corresponds with the themes that are in the classical literature that you're reading. So it's pretty amazing, obviously. But yeah, to answer your question, I found it through a Google search. I found out about their organization and reached out and got a sample of their curriculum and then purchased a license. And it's been awesome.
So tell me give me kind of like a day in a life of how you're using the curriculum. Do you have like a tutorial? Tell me, you're out of the Georgia, right, area. Tell me how it unfolds for you. What does it look like if I were a parent with my student? What would it look like?
Yeah, so initially, which is about 4 years ago now, I believe, I ordered it for my family, my homeschool family, and I have a wide range, 7 kids. So I had every level that Nyansa encompasses, all the way from pre-K or early learners, all the way up through high schoolers. And so I used it for my family, just going through year 1, which is beautiful, the Greek literature that you held up earlier. And then at the high school level, it was just amazing. It was amazing. It's Plato and Frederick Douglass. And so you're reading each of those kind of simultaneously, but they're also in conversation with each other through the discussions that Nyansa has incorporated in the and developed in the curriculum. And so after doing that, just 1 year with my family, I was like, okay, we're bringing this to community. We're doing this. Everybody needs to know about this, that homeschools. And so our Enrichment Academy has been offering this in a community setting. And so currently we have 5 clubs that are offered within our Enrichment Academy. That's Davis Learning Academy. There's a literature clubs for elementary and teens, which implement the literature curriculum of Nyansa. We've done year 1 and year 2 now. There's also art club. And so some of Romare Bearden that Dr. Parham referenced earlier, we actually just did that last week, which is week 10, I believe, of year 2. So students will look at a Romare Bearden piece. We went over Family Dinner, which is one of his pieces. It's a collage, and read the background about it, the history about it, and then students try to recreate it in their own version of it. And it's really amazing to see the skill level of, and these are all, none of these are, professional artists, so to speak. The students are, regular homeschool students, but seeing the talent and how they're able to interpret the art and then recreate their own version of it is really amazing. And then we also have a writing club. So the writing club actually reads the literature curriculum and then in literature club, and then writes about it in the afternoon sessions. And so it's really fleshed out in every area of the curriculum in individual clubs. And there's sort of a rotation that takes place there. And back to the literature clubs, with the literature clubs for the early learners, there's reading that takes place that's out loud of the club leader. So the Greek myths and stories that you held up earlier, and now we're on year 2, which we're going through Homer's Iliad. that's read aloud. And while it's being read aloud, students are actually drawing what they hear. And so what that does is, for early learners who are not yet reading, they can listen to the story and then capture what's happening and then draw it with that artistic expression and then narrate it back to their classmates or peers in the class, in the club rather. So it's a phenomenal curriculum all the way around. The teens are also reading Iliad. They're not reading an abridged version. And so they're reading that out loud, and then they're having discussion about it as they're reading it. So there's several readings. We're comparing Iliad with Sundiata. And so each week, there's a lot of good discussion there about both of those epics that's taking place with the teens.
I love it. You know what I love most, and we're going to unfold the kind of week 1, week 2, and the whole trivium so people can understand what we mean when we talk about the weeks. But what I love is that I think when we start homeschooling and we think about homeschooling, you don't necessarily have to have a separate curriculum for everyone. You find ways to integrate learning. And that's what I'm hearing, Jenelle, as you're talking about, maybe reading on a level that maybe kids are listening to, that they might not know all the vocabulary, but they love to draw. Kids love to draw while you're talking anyway, so it's great. And how you're just really interweaving it into academic experience. And I just think it's so scholarly. And so, Dr. Parham, I have a question for you. I want you to just talk a little bit and explain how you've set up the weeks in the year 1 and the year 2. Is it based on the time period, like medieval and modern, early modern? What was your thought process when you created the curriculum?
Sure. So year 1 is built around Greek mythology. This is at the lower school level. Year 2 follows with the Iliad, and then year 3 with the Odyssey. And the idea is that you want to learn the basic mythology first, so you get a sense of, kind of who the different characters are. And then the Iliad comes chronologically before the Odyssey. And so that's the reason that we do it in that order. It's a little different at the upper school. The upper school, the first year, is more on American history and weaving the American founders together with founding documents, and then Black intellectuals like Frederick Douglass, for instance. And there are some really beautiful ways to kind of blend together the classical, the founders, and the Black intellectuals. Those were all, it may sound incongruous, but actually the founders were fans of the classics. And so they were influenced by classic literature. Douglass is also commenting on founding documents like the Constitution and is also reading classical authors. And so they all blend together very nicely. So that's the first year of upper school. And then the second and third year of upper school follow the lower level of the Iliad and then the Odyssey. And so that's the logic of how we do them.
I love that. And so now, Nyansa, correct me, say it right. Nyansa goes to college. And I will tell you, that's the blog that caught my attention. And I was like, hey, what's going on? How did you get to college? Like, what's going on? And I want you guys to kind of, walk me through this process. So I've gone from having a kindergarten, elementary school student, maybe a middle school student, and now we're talking about high school, and we're talking about high school credit, for classical education. Can you just kind of unfold that? Walk me through, either one of you, whoever wants to kind of kick it off. How did she get to college?
So I'll say something brief, and then I'll hand it over to Jenelle, because Jenelle is really the one who set up the dual enrollment. But the brief comment I will make is that, as you said in the introduction, I'm a college professor. And so my whole vision, really, from when I started homeschooling my daughters, and I really started when they were as young as 2 with daily lessons, I always had in mind, where did I want them to go? I always wanted them to be learning from me in small seminars over great literature. that was always what I had in mind. And so all of Nyansa is really set up to deliver a beautiful, rich liberal arts education to the youngest students, seeing a larger vision for them going toward college. And so Jenelle then took it to the next step of actually doing the dual enrollment. So we'd love to hear more on that.
Yes, Jenelle, we want to hear, share. We want to know. How did it all happen? Is she frozen?
Looks like she might be frozen.
Oh, okay. Hopefully Jenelle can go back in and come back in, because now it's like a cliffhanger. So
I
now we're
know.
all hanging on the cliff, like, what happened? And
Well,
so,
I can say just a little bit until maybe she's moving again.
okay.
Oh wait, okay, maybe she's coming back in because
Yes,
she
yes.
just disappeared. So I'll just wait a moment and see if maybe she
Well,
will.
it's what college is offering the credit? Do you know the name of the college?
Yes, it is. I have it right here. Oh,
Colorado Christian College?
that sounds right. I thought I would have it right here in front of me. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Hey, Jenelle, you're back.
Hey, sorry about that. I think my internet went out, but I'm
No worries.
hopefully okay. Sorry about that.
We were hanging on a cliffhanger because we want to find out from you a little bit about how Nyansa got to college. And Dr. Parham was just throwing the plate to you, right? To tell us how this all happened and how you created dual enrollment credit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with year one at home in our homeschool, and then the following year offering it to the greater homeschool community in a teen literature club. And after seeing the discussion of the teen literature club, which had about 14 youth at the time, and now has grown into multiple clubs, it was such a rich discussion, and the level of rigor that was in the reading, to me, it just seemed like a natural progression to look into ways to try to advocate college credit for this type of study. And so I found out about a program at Colorado Christian University where they offer dual credit to private Christian high schools as well as homeschool organizations that are Christian. And what they'll do is you can basically develop a class for them to review. So you develop all of the course curriculum, the syllabi, all of the assessments, all of the reading material, you name it, whatever they ask for, and basically submit that for them to review. And one of the things that I really like about Colorado Christian is, again, the biblical worldview, and they are looking for that biblical integration on each and every week's lesson. So with Nyansa already having that, along with the rigor that was in the literature readings that students were doing with Plato, Allegory of the Cave, Frederick Douglass's narrative, and other readings that other writings that he wrote, it was just clear to me that this would probably be a good fit to propose for CCU to approve for dual credit. And so I chatted with the dean of CCU Academy, and that is their that's their dual enrollment academy for high schoolers. And they said absolutely. They looked at it. They reviewed the curriculum on 3 different levels, both at the faculty level, program level, and with the dean. And they approved the class for college credit. And we were so excited because what it does is it demonstrates that, the rigor is definitely there. This is a very scalable curriculum at the upper school level and lower school level. But what you're seeing is with the type of literature that the students are engaging in, it is provoking a type of critical analysis and thought process that is at the higher education level as well.
I love that. This is wonderful. I think, when we talk about dual enrollment, and if people have questions, please do feel free to put your comment in the chat, and our team can put some information in the chat about dual enrollment. Some people are not familiar with what dual enrollment is. It's kind of where you are on a high school level, right? You're on a high school level. However, you are studying on a college level and you get credit, right? And this credit usually counts towards your degree program, right? So if there's 120 credits that you need in order to graduate for a bachelor's degree, and you come in with several dual enrollment credits, usually that will count towards the 120, which is exciting. So is this an English class? Tell me what this class is. Is this considered English or?
Yes, so the credit that our students receive for this is English composition
Yes.
one. So it's the first English comp class, and we're also developing the follow on to that English comp two, which will also leverage this curriculum. And I mean, it's phenomenal. With having 3 years worth of content, there's more room for more dual credit classes to be proposed in humanities as well as English comp. But based on the rich classical literature that's presented throughout all of them, and in particular, this class focuses on year one, which is Plato and Frederick Douglass. Students are able to receive the English comp credit, right through their homeschooling experience, which is great.
I love this. This is just, really a blessing and a dream come true, because, there's a fallacy that, homeschooling doesn't have the vigor and pace of, traditional education, but in many places it obviously exceeds it, just because these students are being able to be exposed to such great, rich education. Well, Dr. Parham, we want to just hear you just speak into that, about how this made you feel to know, one, being a professor, but to know that another university would pick it up for academic credit. How does that feel for you?
I was so delighted when I learned about all this. I think Jenelle told me when it had already gone through the whole process. And, just hearing her describe it, the 3 levels of review, how rigorous the review process was. And I've been in universities all my life. I know what that process is like. And I'm really, really so excited and so happy that she undertook to do this. And just having that kind of content at the college level with that kind of integration is also very exciting to me. So I just love it. And it's the kind of thing where I know that Jenelle's students at Davis Learning Academy have this opportunity, but what's exciting is that other students from other places, because this is it's online and synchronous, right? But it's open to other students in other places as well.
I love this. This is exciting. So I bet people have questions, and we can put some information about dual enrollment. I know that when a student presents themselves in dual enrollment, because I love being able to talk about high school. I love all things high school. There is obviously a transcript and a record keeping paperwork that needs to go behind great curriculum like this. And so at HSLDA, we have resources available for you to kind of level up, if you will, so that you will have a great transcript. Our transcript service is wonderful. We have great webinars. If you're an HSLDA member, we have webinars on how to put together your transcript, because if you're college bound, you still have to present yourself, right? So by the time you get to college, right, if these students are 11th grade, they obviously have some sort of footprint across good record keeping that lines up to the dual enrollment credit. And so we're here to help you on that, and we'll post some resources in the chat where you can get a hold of how to do a transcript, and what would some of the elements, the core English, math, science, history, foreign language look like, so that you can present yourself, because obviously these are the entry level courses, right, on the college level, but obviously a student is on their way to some other degree program. And it's so nice that homeschooling gives students the ability to have the flexibility and the freedom to do just that. And so it's exciting. So, all right. So, if parents are watching, what would you say? Let's say they're in the middle of their current curriculum and they want to do more, right? They want to be more academic. They want to maybe bring a classical approach to it. Where would you say they would start? Let's just say they had a middle school student. How could you jump in if you've already began your homeschool journey? Anybody want to share?
Yeah, I can share. I get this all the time. And in fact, I had a parent just this week ask me, how can she integrate Nyansa into her, weekly flow, daily life? And they're actually not homeschooling parents, but they're very interested in homeschooling. And they're wanting something now to start with just for enrichment after school. And I pointed her to the literature because you can read each session in one session, let's say like 30 minutes to an hour with your kids, um, and it has the discussion questions at the end. So even for parents who are new to classical pedagogy, I still encourage jump right in because it's so intellectually stimulating. And the way that Nyansa has developed it, it's literally you can read it aloud, take turns with your kids, and depending on their reading level, and if you're comfortable and they're comfortable with that, you can take turns and go through the discussion questions at the end of each session. And I think what most people will find is it fosters such rich discussion that it doesn't even feel like the negative aspects of learning that people may be used to in traditional settings or even in non-traditional settings. It feels like you're having a really good edifying conversation, and like you are learning not only about the literature but also about what it is that the Bible says and what the Bible how the Bible may rationalize this literature. And so it's great in that way. Another way to integrate is the art. Art is always fun. It's low key, well, except for the cleanup, right? But it's pretty low key, and it's very flexible in that you can just use whatever you have. You can, if you have crayons or just pencils, even. Students can you can show them a piece of art from one of the art lessons, and there's 20 in each year, and read the paragraph about the artist and what type of mediums the artist used, and then let the student try to recreate it themselves. And it's just so nice in that way to have that creative aspect and the interdisciplinary nature of the curriculum and classical education at large. One last thing, because I could talk about this forever. The music composer, that's another set of lessons. That's another splice, if you will, of the curriculum. And it's really like music appreciation, but it's in like bite-sized chunks so that any learner at any level can digest it and really engage with the composer and their genre and learn about the history around it and become familiar with the pieces that they created. So yeah, those are all great ways to just jump right in and add on top of whatever you're already doing if you're a homeschool parent or a traditional school parent.
I love this. It's just so exciting, and I'm grinning from ear to ear because I lead a tutorial in my community, and we do classical, and we're always looking for more literature. We have the ones that are very, very popular, and I want to kind of go back to Classical Academic Press and about how I found you, Dr. Parham, and Dr. Anika. We use a lot of Classical Academic Press, and so we are doing Latin, Song School Latin and Latin Alive and Latin for Children. And, we're in there regularly. And I came across the book you wrote. And I just want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the book that you co-authored and give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about it. So when people come across it and they see your name, they're like, wait a minute, that's the same person. Tell us a little bit about that book and how it all came to be about.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So the book is called The Black Intellectual Tradition, Reading Freedom in Classical Literature, published by Classical Academic Press, 2022. And my co-author, Dr. Anika Prather, who many know as well. So we were both very, very excited about classical education and excited about weaving it together with diverse voices. And so what many people may not realize about the Black intellectual tradition, particularly in the United States, is the extent to which our foremost Black intellectuals were often classically educated. And, it's kind of this secret that many people don't realize. And so we wanted to write the book to help people understand that classical education truly is for everyone. And so our lens is the Black intellectual tradition because that's what we know best. And so what we did is we have reflections on several different Black writers, and we give background on their classical education, and then also talk about how they interact with these classic texts. But very importantly, they interact with them in a way where they're taking the classic text of the Western tradition, they're weaving that together with their own culture and their history, and they're creating something beautiful and new. And I think sometimes people, when they hear the idea of classical education or tradition, they think, oh, it's this stodgy, old-fashioned, antiquarian thing. But actually, the best kind of classical education is literally a handing on of the tradition. And what you do when you hand on the tradition is you invite your students to a feast of ideas, and they learn that and incorporate that, but they weave that together with their own history and background and culture to precisely create something beautiful and new. And so in the book, we look at how different intellectuals like Phyllis Wheatley, like Oloda Equiano, Frederick Douglass, Anna Julia Cooper, Martin Luther King Jr., Toni Morrison, how they all did that in their time and created something beautiful that spoke to the world.
I love it. I love it. You guys have just been busy, really behind the scenes, doing some amazing things with classical education. I'm intrigued, and I just have learned so much. Every time I talk to you, I feel like, it's like this is like a replay. You got to sit down and replay you again and write down notes. And how can they reach you? How do they find you? I want to just both of you guys talk about where they can see you in action. Maybe you guys have websites or Facebook pages or someplace where the world can connect with you. Where would they go?
Sure. So I can put our website and then also my email into the chat, okay. And then people can reach us that way. Okay. So I'm not sure if that goes just to the private or if that goes to everyone, but maybe someone can share it with the larger.
Okay. Yes, I believe they shared that one. That's great.
Okay. All right. Then I will put my email, and I'm very happy to communicate with you that way as well.
Okay, great. And tell us more about Davis Academy. It's out of Georgia, right? So if people wanted to model some sort of, I see you have all these clubs and communities, Jenelle. How would they model some of the things or see what you're doing so they can model some of the things you're doing? In homeschooling, we love to kind of copy. I gave it a prettier word like model. We want to model. We just want to copy. So tell us what we would do and where we would go to see how you're using this awesome curriculum.
Yes, so you can definitely look at our website, which is davislearningacademy.org, and I'm typing this as well. And I'm also on social. We have a page, Davis Learning Academy, that you can follow us on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, Davis Learning Academy. And you see a lot of our weekly activities and can get an idea of how our clubs implement Nyansa. and our dual enrollment cohort. Recently, our dual enrollment cohort had a teen excursion outing, so you can kind of see what those look like and kind of follow our activities with our college partners. Also, you can email me directly at janelle@davislearningacademy.org, and I'll be happy to help out any homeschooler. I love helping out homeschoolers. I think I kind of have overdone it a bit, but I love helping individual homeschoolers and homeschool groups to implement Nyansa. So if you have any questions on how to do this and what that looks like, feel free to reach out.
Okay. And a couple last questions. You are a fellow, is that right? A Nyansa fellow at St. John's College. Tell us a little bit more about that. Mama on
Yes.
Blues.
Yes, so I just finished my second year at St. John's College. It has been very intellectually stimulating and invigorating. The first summer, I did the natural science and math seminars and tutorials, and which was kind of more so in in line with my background. And after I got my feet wet with that, this year transitioned to history, and that was very that was like the total other side of that I have never really studied in that way, and it's just phenomenal. A lot of what Nyansa is doing at the K through 12 level, you see very similar types of discussions at the St. John's College level with the seminars and the tutorials, the Socratic discussion that's held throughout each on literature, on history. So you have to really be well versed in each discipline. And it's been a phenomenal experience. It's really helped me to take that information and bring it back and implement it in my local community and help other communities that are implementing the classical pedagogy as well.
If I could just, if I could just add on to that. So we're so excited and proud about Jenelle being our first fellow to do that. St. John's College Annapolis has been incredibly generous in partnering with us. And so for those like Jenelle who are leading hybrid schools or centers and who are using Nyansa's curriculum, St. John's College has opened up this possibility for an all tuition paid master's degree. And so Jenelle is the first one going through it. And then we've got another one who's just about to go through the process to get accepted. And so it's a beautiful opportunity. We're very grateful to have it.
I love this. Well, thank you, ladies. This has been so enlightening, just very engaging. You guys are, really talking about some incredible, classical education stuff, but you're so laid back about it. It just rolls off your tongue. I knew this was going to be an easy interview because you guys really know your subject matter. And so we're just so very grateful to have you here live. And at HSLDA, we want to be able to support, we're advocates of homeschooling, and we want to be able to advocate for, homeschoolers even beyond, right? That post-homeschool education opportunity. So we've had this great discussion today about making classical studies count for college credit. And you guys have showed us how to do it from kindergarten, right? Or pre-kindergarten, right? Dr. Parham says she started at 2, all the way up to post-high school into college. This has just been an absolute delight. So as we close, I just want you to think about one word of encouragement that you can give to homeschool moms who are watching, who really want to just take 10 seconds. And I want to encourage you guys to go to hslda.org and become a member, get connected into our community so that you can get our live webinars and get connected to our attorneys and all of the people who make, homeschooling possible for you. So I want you to think about it. You guys, what one word would you leave for our homeschool mamas watching who want to jump into your curriculum and do more in the classics? Who's first?
Well, I will just say, you can do it. Don't be intimidated. Sometimes people think, oh, I don't have a classical education. I haven't read all of these authors. my first Homer was the Children's Illustrated Odyssey. That's what I started with, and that's what it takes. It's just a willingness to start humbly and learn with your children, and it will all come together.
I love it. And how about you, Jenelle?
I would have to agree. As a engineer by trade, Plato, the first time I read Plato was through Nyansa, homeschooling my kids. So definitely try it. And also it is for everyone, and dig in. It's awesome.
I love it. So thank you so much for watching today, spending a little time with us. You can visit us at www.hslda.org. We want to thank you so much for watching, and feel free to connect with our chat. If you have questions for these ladies in the chat, they're happy to answer it. And thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.